And I publicly said, and I have said it many times, I don't think that Senator McCain lacks the rigor and the capacity to be president. And I said, if you look at his mother and see her strength at 95, of all the things we can pick on Senator McCain for, that ain't one of them. There may be some other things I could pick on Senator McCain about, but not that. And frankly, I think he's demonstrated in the campaign that he's got the capacity to run. He and I would have different approaches to be president, but I promise you that is not an issue for me. It might be for Chuck, but I'm far enough away from him that I feel comfortable in saying that now.
Governor, thank you. Senator McCain, because it's your mother, 15 seconds.
Well, now that Sylvester Stallone has endorsed me, I'm sending over to take care of Chuck Norris right away. And I'm going to get him.
That'll be a heck of a pay-per-view.
There you go. And I'm glad that Stormin' Norman, General Sorchkov, has endorsed me as well. I'm very honored. We'll send him too.
We're getting into the final round of questions where it makes staying to time, yellow lights, then red, essential, and we're going to enforce it. These questions are designed to speak to who you all are in terms of how you counter the attacks against you from your opponents, the weaknesses your opponents, among others, perceive. Mayor Giuliani, we're going to begin with you. In tomorrow morning's editions of the New York Times, they are out with their endorsements in the New York primary. Senator Clinton on the Democratic side, Senator McCain on the Republican side. In tonight's lead editorial, they say, quote, "The real Mr. Giuliani, who many New Yorkers came to know and mistrust, is a narrow, obsessively secretive, vindictive man. His arrogance and bad judgment are breathtaking." How can you defend against that in your hometown paper? How have you changed as a man since this portrait?
Because I probably never did anything the New York Times suggested I do in 8 years as mayor of New York City. And if I did, I wouldn't be considered a conservative Republican. I changed welfare. I changed quality of life. I took on homelessness. I did all the things that they thought make you mean, and I believe show true compassion and true love for people. I moved people from welfare to work. When I did that, when I set up Workfare, the New York Times wrote nasty editorials about how mean I was, how cruel I was. I think there's a serious ideological difference, and I worked for Ronald Reagan, and I remember once when I was in the Justice Department, the New York Times wrote a very laudatory editorial about my boss, Bill Smith, the Attorney General. And Bill was very nervous that Ronald Reagan would get upset that we were off agenda because of the good New York Times editorial. So right. the reality is that I think there is serious ideological differences. That probably was some of the nicest language they've written about me in the last 6 months.
Governor Romney, since we've been on the air tonight, one of the other campaigns has faxed us with a charge about you that you've heard before, that Governor Romney, quote, changes positions with the wind. One of your own advisors admits the perception among all of the candidates on stage is that you have changed over time your positions, that you haven't paid your dues. The New York Times yesterday called you the most disliked of the five. Your defense and all that.
Gosh, that's tough on their part, but you know, I'm not terribly worried about their attacks, frankly. I'm not going to Washington to make friends with politicians. I'm going to Washington to change things, so I'm not going to worry about that one. I can tell you that I'm proud of the things that we've been able to do in my state, and when people come after me and say, hey, where do you stand on this or where do you stand on that, I can point to a very simple way to find out exactly where I stand. And that is look at my record as governor. Every issue that we're talking about in this race that's of a domestic nature, I dealt with as the governor of Massachusetts. And so on the issue of abortion, for instance, I came down on the side of life consistently as governor in every way I knew how I could do that. At the end of my term, I got awarded by the Citizens for Life in Massachusetts the Leadership Award for my service in that regard. In terms of marriage, as the governor, I fought same-sex marriage every way I could find a way to do that. And I actually went to Washington to testify in favor of an amendment to preserve the sanctity of marriage. I also have a very clear record with regards to taxes. I said I was not going to raise taxes, lowered them 19 times, balanced the budget 4 times, created surpluses that reestablished a rainy day fund of over $2 billion. I have a sound record also with regards to the Second Amendment. As I indicated, the legislation I signed was legislation worked out between two sides, two very different sides who came together to find ways to make the Second Amendment work in our state. So I got a record that's solid. I know that now and then my opponents will try and cause questions to arise in people's minds, but I'm proud of where I stand, and I'm happy to show people my record to show it's been consistent. Time has expired. Senator McCain, we've talked about the issue that arose with the Chuck Norris fight, shall we say, with your mom. The LA Times famously wrote recently that your own temper, quote, has been an issue for years. You see that as a possible impediment?
I don't. I've dealt with people and my friends and colleagues for many, many years. I think they know me. I don't think I would have the support of so many of my colleagues that I work with every day if that were the case. And I've been able not only to make close friendships and warm ones over the years, but also across the aisle. If you'll indulge me 1 second. I know this is unusual, but I happen to know Rudy Giuliani. I happen to know he's an American hero, and I happen to have gone to New York City after 9/11, and I'm proud of the way he led this country and united it following 9/11. And all these are good people who are running here, and I respect them, and I intend to respect them both during and after this campaign is over.
Governor Huckabee, a Bush administration official said that, quote, your use of faith in your campaign gave him a queasy feeling. Your response?
I would say that would be his problem, not mine. My faith does not give me a queasy feeling. It gives me a solid core from which I'm able to live every day. I don't wake up every day and have to look at a poll to decide what I believe. My faith grounds me. It gives me some sense of direction and purpose. I don't try to impose it on other people, and I certainly would never use the auspices of government to try to push my faith. But for me to run from it, impossible. It's who I am. And so if it gives some people a queasy feeling, then they'll have to deal with it. The fact is, this country has always been a country where people were able to respect people who had faith, and frankly, we ought to be able to respect people who don't have any. Man, I don't feel like a person has to share my faith to share my love of this country. But if a person hates me or dislikes me because of my faith, I'm not sure if they understand what it means to truly be an American where we can live with each other, no matter how different our faith is, but at least we have that understanding that historically, faith has been an important part of who this country is. Most Americans believe in God. As I've often said, if you want a president that doesn't, you'll have to pick somebody else.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman Paul, the other campaigns have said to you that their worry is that you won't stick to your party. If you look at yourself and see yourself someday as unelectable, perhaps you would launch a third-party movement and hurt the Republicans.
My biggest concern is they won't stick to the party principles that Republicans stood for so long. And, you know, being conservative and balanced budgets and limited government and individual freedom. No, I have no intention of going into another party. I've been elected 10 times as a Republican. I was from a Republican family, and no, I don't plan to do that. I wish they would worry about it, you know, just in case. But no, I have no intention of doing that, but it might keep them on their toes. But no, I just think that the Republican Party has a problem because we don't act like Republicans. And we talked about this earlier, you know, that we're spending money that we don't have. We run up these deficits. We, instead of, you know, in the old days, we used to be against the Department of Education. Now we doubled the size of it. No child left behind. Even the Democrats are running against some of the things that we do. And they used to love that kind of stuff. And it used to be that we used to stop the wars. We stopped the Korean War. We were supposed to stop the Vietnam War that the Democrats started. And here we're starting these wars. So that's why we've lost our way. So I don't think it's a matter of me leaving the Republican Party. If they would look toward what we're doing and the number of people who want to come into the party, they shouldn't be obstructing us. They should welcome. The party's getting smaller. Yet they say, oh, you're too strict on the Constitution. Why should us who believe strictly in the Constitution and rule of law be excluded? That's the way a lot of the people that gather around my candidacy think they're being treated. So I would say, why don't we have a big tent and welcome those of us who believe in liberty and believe in the Constitution? That's what it's all about, and that's what the Republican Party used to stand for.
Congressman, thank you. That will have to be the, before we